You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
What is up, good people? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Oh man, do I have an amazing episode for you this week. This week, I am talking to my new buddy, Mr. Tim Pierce. If you don't know who Tim is, well, please let me introduce you to something called Google, because you're going to want to search him and check out his enormous lineup of credits. It's absolutely stunning. I can all but guarantee you have heard a song with Tim's playing on it, whether you knew it or not. He's worked with everyone from Michael Jackson to Phil Collins, the Goo Goo Dolls, you name it. This dude has probably played on it. It's absolutely mind-blowing the amount of projects he has played on that are like substantial ones that you've definitely heard before. And on top of all of that, as if that wasn't enough, he has one of the largest and best YouTube channels in the guitar world. Yes, he takes time out of his day to do this content stuff like us plebes over here, which is honestly freaking awesome. Tim and I had an epic conversation. I think you're really, really, really going to enjoy this. So thank you to Tim for coming on this episode. We also had a banging episode on Patreon. The bonus episode is just as good as this one, and I think people are really going to enjoy that conversation as well. So if you would like to get extra bonus episodes beamed to your ears every week, $5 a month will get them to you, and you'll get access to the ad-free feed as well. So go over to patreon.com/tonemob for that. And without further ado, let's get into this episode with my new buddy, Mr. Tim Pierce. Here we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, a show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Wyland. With me today, I have Tim Pierce. What's going on, man?
Just enjoying a Friday, looking forward to the weekend, and looking forward to talking with you because we connected briefly at Sweetwater, and it took us a little while to get here, but I'm super excited about it.
We're here now. Yes, I couldn't be more excited. I've been wanting to do this episode for a very long time, even before we met, so... You know, long overdue, but...
Me too.
Better late than never, right?
Right.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think people mostly know your story, and I would normally start there, but I think we can do like the quickest possible overview of who you are, just in case there are some newer listeners that aren't as familiar. But I'm guessing if they've made it to this show, they probably are familiar. But we can give them a quick rapid fire version of your backstory as quick as possible. Anyway, it might be a bit of a challenge.
Well, do you want me to just dive in?
Dive in. We'll go.
Yeah, okay. So I moved to LA in 1980 and I started working on records right away. And over the course of 4 decades, I ended up playing on over 1,000 records. So I have a lot of credits. And if you Google me or if you go to allmusic.com, it's pretty extensive, and that's not an ego thing. It's just if you stay in one place, stay by the phone long enough, and try and do good work, show up early, be reliable. Sometimes you can just acquire a pretty massive amount of credits. And in the 80s, I did Bon Jovi's first single. I did 4 Rick Springfield records. I did Crowded Houses, Don't Dream It's Over. And then around 1990, I started working every single day in the studio as a studio guitar player. That's when most of the big credits came in, from Michael Jackson to Tina Turner to, Whitney Houston to Celine Dion, on and on and on. And then in the 2000s, it became Rascal Flatts and Lana Del Rey. And some of my favorite stuff was I did a Phil Collins song that he won the Academy Award for called "You'll Be in My Heart."
It's a great song.
Oh, well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it meant a lot to him because he was a child actor. So when he walked out on the stage at the Academy Awards and got an Oscar, he was really, really pleased about that. Maybe my favorite song is I did Iris by the Goo Goo Dolls, and that still holds up as one of the most beautiful records ever made, I think. And there are a few others.
The amount of times me and my friends jammed that in the garage is absurd.
I'm so glad, man. I'm so glad. So, it was a really nice ride, and it continues to this day. I have sessions next week. I have sessions the week after. Got a film score coming up that I have to work on. And but the real thing that happened to me about 10 years ago, I decided to create another business. So I worked a double shift, for about a decade doing sessions and my education business. And now I have the Masterclass. The Masterclass is a membership. I have 4 employees, and there's so many educational videos in it. There's almost like 2,000 videos and 200 hours of lessons and content. And we offer a free trial. So if anybody wants guitar lessons, that's my other business now. It keeps me very busy in addition to session work.
Yeah. You have just don't stop, do you? You just got a motor that won't stop.
Well, you know how it is. Once you build something, you have to show up for it. That's kind of the beauty of it. Once you have a reputation as a studio musician, you get calls. You got to show up. And in this particular case, I have employees and I have members, and I've got to show up every day. So it's nice. It kind of takes you. You rise to the occasion.
Yes, absolutely. I do understand that 100%. And it's so refreshing to hear somebody like yourself that's been doing this as long as you have that still seems genuinely fired up by it. That sometimes people tend to get a bit jaded and they lose the passion for it that they once had, and that does not seem to be the case with you, which is really refreshing.
That's true. Thank you. Well, this technology, having the web business and the membership keeps me kind of focused on new things, and having to do YouTube videos that people click on. That's a very, very difficult. And the hardest work I do is making a title and a thumbnail for a YouTube video that people will click on. And I never expected to be in the advertising business, but that's basically what it is. So
right.
It keeps me sharp.
I feel that. I want to get into the YouTube side specifically, but I actually want to go way back, rewind, because I know all the stuff that you just said. I was familiar with most of that. But what I'm not familiar with is Little Tim. And when did you first get inspired to pick up the guitar? What was the stuff that you were listening to back in the day? What led you to be able to make the decision to make that move and pursue this? Because something has to light you up pretty early on.
Well, luckily for me, I was born in 1958. So in 1970, I was 12. In 1968, I was 10. And I came of age in the absolute renaissance of pop and rock music, soul music. So my love of music comes entirely from listening to top 40 radio, AM radio in the 60s. There were no musicians in my family, but growing up in the desert in Albuquerque, New Mexico, could always see the empty horizon around me, made for big dreams, and the radio was always playing. And when you heard Led Zeppelin on the radio, or the Beatles, or Otis Redding, or Peter, Paul, and Mary, or on and on, The Fifth Dimension, every great artist and songwriter and singer and band that came on the radio in the 60s just made me walk on air. So my love of music comes from top 40 music in the 60s. And by the time I was 12, I picked up the guitar, became obsessed with that. That was my way in. I've always loved songs more than anything, and I love guitar in service of songs. So I kind of moved to California and did what I was meant to do. So that's how it happened.
What was your first guitar?
It was a Harmony, Sears Harmony.
Mm-hmm. Do you still have it?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no.
I'm a hoarder, so I still have my first instruments and probably will forever because I'm
good for you. That's great. That's great.
Do you remember when you first started figuring out? I mean, because everybody goes through this process where you pick up a guitar, maybe you got a little practice amp or something, and then eventually you're like, oh no, that's not the sound I'm looking for. I need that sound. How do I get that sound? Like, when did you start? I mean, you got this nice collection of amps behind you. Obviously, you know a thing or two about gear. When did you start realizing that that was a piece of the equation, not just playing?
Well, I think that happens at the very beginning. I remember wanting to distort the harmony amp I had, and there was an Electro Harmonics plug-in. It was a little box that you plugged into the top of the amp called the LPB1 power booster, and that distorted the amp. And so it happened at the beginning. And then I got my first Marshall at age 19, a 50-watt Marshall, saved money and got that. And that was transformative because I could hear harmonics all of a sudden that I had never heard before. So it was there at the beginning. And of course, the lure of the gear. I mean, you go into music stores and look at all the great pieces of gear that were available then. You know, it was all the best Les Pauls and Stratocasters and Fenders and Marshalls in the local music store in the 60s. All the stuff that's, you know, rare and vintage and coveted today, that's what you would see when you walked in. So it came at the beginning. I mean, the gear thing, the awareness of the gear thing. I got my first wah-wah pedal and I could wah-wah. I got my first fuzz tone and I could make fuzz sounds. This stuff happened early. My first Univibe, it was real. And of course, it broke within a couple of months because they weren't really well made.
Sure.
But I was deep in. I was getting whatever I could, and whatever I could afford. And you know, it was mainly the guitar and the amp, and you could afford a few pedals, and that's all we used.
Mm-hmm. So there's a couple. We're going to fast forward a little bit. So there's obviously a few. I mean, the beautiful thing about music is now you can do it anywhere. But back in the day, you kind of had to go to one of the hubs if you really wanted to do the type of work that you do. So L.A., Nashville, New York, that was pretty much it. So how did you pick L.A.?
When I grew up, every really kind of aspirational thing you saw on TV was done in Los Angeles. All the best hot rods, all the best music, all the best bicycles, everything aspirational appeared in media on the West Coast. And I grew up 810 miles from the West Coast. And then even basketball, I was a huge Lakers fan. I would get Lakers games on my shortwave radio in my backyard. Every dream I had was centered in California. There was no question. You know, you just drive a day and a half west and you're there.
Mm-hmm. That makes all the sense in the world. And proximity, that definitely has a lot to do with it. Yeah. But the media exposure is huge. I've always had a pull to Nashville as growing up as a country music fan, and now doing the stuff I get to do now, it's like, I'm in Nashville all the time. It's kind of weird. Even though I'm on the other coast, I'm closer to LA than I am to Nashville. But yeah, it's interesting how these places all become these hubs for different things, and LA's retained it for a long time. Some places kind of lose it or it grows and goes elsewhere, but LA seems to still have the magic. Is that accurate to say?
Well, I think Nashville is the center and the best city for organic music. Mm-hmm. But the thing about Los Angeles is it's pretty wide open. You can be whoever you want to be and make the kind of art or music you want to make. There's no rules, really. Movie and television post-production is huge here, and records are still made here, and some of the biggest artists in the world still live here. But I think Nashville is the epicenter of guitar-centric music at this point. But I'm very, very comfortable here, and I like the weather, and I like my friends and my family, and I like where I live. So I'm a big fan of LA. And yes, it is still the epicenter of entertainment, but I think Nashville is the epicenter of organic music, including guitar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right about that. And similarly, if I was going to live anywhere else in the world, it would be Nashville. But I'm an Oregon boy. Every time I go there, I'm like, man, I love this place. This is great. And then I come back home and I'm like, yeah, but but I need this.
I do too. I love the winter weather. It's just incredible.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. So, Tim, what would you suggest? This is a shift, obviously. What would you suggest now? You've seen so many different levels of this and different eras of this. if somebody wants to get into doing session work, they are really passionate about it. Maybe they don't want to be the person on stage necessarily, but they would love to be doing session work all the time. How does one get into it in 2024?
Well, the bar is pretty high at this point, and part of the reason for that is there's less session work than there used to be. So the people doing it are, it used to be that the top 5% of talented people did it. Now it's the top 0.5% because there's so little of it available. So it is hard to get into. But I would say do it for free, do it for your friends. Find relationships that you think will grow. I would always invest in composers and artists and writers and musicians and producers who I knew that maybe at that moment didn't have the budget to pay me that well, but I thought maybe in 5 years they'll actually be very successful and things will get better. And that happened to me a lot. I would create relationships with people that lasted a lifetime. And so invest in all of the creative people around you that are doing good work. Don't expect to get paid well at first, and just get better at the craft. I think that you should have realistic expectations about session work because the job doesn't really exist in any real formed and, it's not like a building you can walk into anymore. It's not like a city you can go to anymore. It's such a small thing now, such a refined and rarefied thing that plan on doing some of it, plan on being as good as you can doing it, but also do all the other things. Play live, teach, write, do jingles, do everything a musician can do to create multiple income streams, and then let session work just develop and reach its own level.
I like that. That's really good. Yeah, because that's not a focus for me at all. I've never, ever tried to pursue that. And even me over here, who just mostly just talks about this stuff, has gotten the opportunity to play on a few different things here and there because people like big weird riffs sometimes, and so I'm like, I can do weird. I got that handled. So that's it. I think that's just to further your point. You just do all the things, do it, find the thing that you really like or are best at, and that stuff will probably come up because I never asked for it. People just asked me to do it here and there, and I was like, me? Oh, okay.
Yeah, that
don't you want Tim?
Yeah, no, well, it's true. That happens to my YouTube friends. I have friends who are YouTubers who get asked to play guitar in video games all the time. So that's a new way that it happens, and it's fun work and they get paid well for it, but it's not constant. I think you should give up the expectation that you are going to do it full time. That was from my era. That era is no longer, except for a very, very few people.
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Merit Mercury X. My dad's always going on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations in 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my talkie?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff. Yeah, well, like Brent Mason and who else? You know?
Well, Brent, it wouldn't be Brent at this point because he is, his busy era was a couple of different decades. But that would be guys like Tom Bukovac and Justin Ostrander and a few of those other guys in Nashville. And then here it's a gentleman named Andrew Sinowick, who's a friend of mine. And,
absolutely.
But yeah, I think Brent is kind of crossed the finish line and just does the sessions he wants to do at this point. But you're not wrong. He's the vibe I get. Guys. I'm just saying in the actual workday world of session work these days, the names have changed a bit.
Yeah. I feel like he probably gets to pick and choose at this point. You know?
I know he does. Yeah. He's set.
Yep. Which is great. That's fantastic. And he's set not because of an accident. He's set because he worked really, really hard for multiple decades.
That's right. That's right.
So, onto the YouTube thing. Where did the idea for that start? Was that all like, I'm going to build this lessons business, or was it, let's put some videos up and see what happens, and the lessons business grew from that? How did that start for you?
The sole purpose of YouTube for me is to bring people to join my masterclass and sign up for the membership. And it was that way from the beginning. I met Marty Schwartz, and I was so impressed with his business model, him and Brett Papa, that I completely just went for it. And Marty and Brett helped me. Marty gave me my first YouTube video that got me my first big surge of subscribers. And Brett Papa helped me develop my first product. So it started by me seeing these guys who were knocking it out of the park financially. And of course, Marty at that point, he and Justin Sanderco were the biggest teachers on YouTube because YouTube was in its infancy back then. And I was just so impressed with the fact that they were doing something that scaled at that level because it's a product rather than a service. And they were into, it was just amazing what they were doing. And I wanted to be part of it. So I didn't hesitate. But YouTube has always been, it is a wonderful place to have an audience and the appreciation from people in the comments and when you meet them at conventions and stuff like that. It's incredible. But that is basically an afterthought. I did YouTube to actually, teach and offer people a pathway to join the masterclass. And of course, the gear thing has gotten pretty big too. I have a lot of companies that I do gear videos for, but I never take fees and it's always organic. I learned, kind of the hard way just by doing it, that it's much better for me if I pay for the piece of gear and just kind of pay it forward to the company and use the piece of gear to drive views to a video, not expect anything else. So I don't do the sponsored gear videos. It's not part of my ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see that kind of changes based on who you're talking to, right? And the sponsored posts, I'm obviously there are sponsors on this podcast, so I'm a bit biased, but I don't take anything from anybody that I don't like.
Yeah, I get that.
And a lot of people, and I think, talking to some different people from different industries, we'll just say like the media people at some of these companies, they're shocked at how the guitar tubers are mostly that way. They're like, if they don't like a piece of gear, no amount of money is going to make them say they like a piece of gear. It's not really a thing that I've encountered. But that's the constant thing in the comments. It's like, oh, you only like it because you got paid. And it's like, man, I could have reviewed 20 different things that I didn't like just to get paid. I don't want people to think that I'm going to do that. And that's the way most of my friends that do this are as well. And it's interesting to see there's like a big conspiracy that we're all out to market some piece of crap,
For us, credibility is so crucial, and we are under a microscope all the time, credibility wise. And so I think we all get a real sense that we really have to believe in what we are showing people. And I feel like everybody is pretty ethical that way. I can't think of one YouTuber there are YouTubers who show everything, but when they do that, they're realistic. They're not trying to coerce anybody. They'll just show a new Fender or a new Gibson or whatever, and they're excited about the new color or whatever. But I think in general, YouTubers in our community are very ethical and very credible. But can I segue, because it's early in the podcast?
Please, segue.
The company that brought us here was Widex. And a lot of the people that you're not, your audience is musicians, right? But a lot of people don't talk about this cool product from Widex. Can we talk about that for 1 second? Because I kind of owe them a debt of gratitude for this.
I was only familiar with it because of this conversation, so I would love you to educate me.
Yeah, just really quickly, because it's early in the video. So I'm friends with Steve Lukather, and I heard through the grapevine that Steve Lukather had become an ambassador for Widex hearing aids. Now, we're all of a certain age, those of us who've been doing this a long time, where we've stood in front of loud amps for a long, long time. And any musician my age, even some younger, will have a certain amount of tinnitus or a hearing deficiency, usually in the top end or the high mids, right? And so at a certain point you go, how do I want to address this? And Steve Lukather I thought, if Steve is doing this, I'm interested. So I immediately found out about the product that he was endorsing, Widex. And I bought a set of Widex. And I just happened to time it perfectly where they'd come out with this thing called the Smart Rick. And it's this revolutionary design. I'm not wearing them right now, but I wear them all the time. And they're so great that I forget that I'm wearing them. It's like the technology has gotten to the point where I hear everything, but they just replace the frequencies that are missing. And it's when you listen to music, I was listening to an Atmos room the other day at Matt Wallace and Will Kennedy's, and they were playing me a group of us, all of these Atmos mixes, and I had my Widex hearing aids in, and I was just hearing all this top end and air. Now, the thing that I didn't realize about having help with your hearing at this age is that it actually makes you think differently. When you start hearing again, your brain stops working so hard to pull in the information, and things fire quickly. It's like I feel smarter. When I hear people talk, they trust me more because I can hear them instantly rather than making them repeat stuff. And then you read about this, it actually keeps you from getting any kind of dementia and you get in your older and older years. So, there used to be a stigma about this. I don't think anymore. I mean, it's just something that I wanted to talk about early in this podcast because that's, they were kind enough to put us together. And if you're of a certain age and you need some help with your hearing, don't hesitate.
Well, I mean, I don't even know that age is the all-defining factor in it either, because my dad has had hearing aids for as long as I can remember.
There you go.
Literally, I know that he didn't have them when I was born, but I kind of vaguely remember him getting, maybe he got some new ones. I don't know. I remember him having them literally my whole life. And my grandpa had them, forever. So they had, my dad would have been in his late 20s, early 30s when he got his first set. So I've grown up with guys that have hearing aids. Now, I don't seem to have that same genetic predisposition that he does. But my ears are so important to what I do. I need them to I'm really protective of them. I wasn't when I was younger because I was stupid, but now I'm, anything I'm doing, even I'm just like hammering some wood, it's earmuffs on. I'm not dealing with this. I'm probably more sensitive to it because
Yes, you are.
I
Yeah.
lost an eyeball in 2011, which was a bad time. So I don't want to lose any more senses. I've already done that. So
Oh,
I
it's
don't
so
recommend
great.
it.
It's so great to share your story. It's funny when people share stuff that's happened to them. It's so wonderful because nobody has a perfect ride in this life, right?
Right.
We all deal with stuff. But anyway, that's a
Yeah.
company that I really love. I bought the Wide X,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm really benefiting from just hearing like a teenager again. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
So you mentioned that it only amplifies the frequencies that you're missing. That seems to be a new thing because I remember
It
them.
is.
They were everything was just louder, even if it didn't need to be. So it sounded kind of weird, right? And
Yeah, we are in
how
a
does
new
that
world.
work?
We're in a new world. It just replaces, the technology has gotten to the point where it just replaces what's missing. And you forget that you're wearing hearing aids. In my case, it's mainly high end, and I just hear the music better and I hear the conversation better, and I forget they're even on my ears.
That's
It's
amazing.
fantastic.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna look into this. I really didn't know that much about it. I don't need hearing aids yet, but who knows?
Some of your audience, there might be a couple of people in your audience who are thinking about this, and I say just look into it. And every year it's going to get better and better and better. So if you wait 2 years, with the availability of the technology is going to be outrageous. If you do it now, it's great too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, thanks for all that. That was a good thing to get into here. So, in theory, this is a guitar show. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's an alien show. So who knows? It can be anything. But what guitars have you excited these days? What are you gravitating towards when you look at the guitar collection of Tim Pierce? What's the first one you grab?
Well, it's just funny. It comes down to some really dear relationships I have. I am friends with Paul Reed Smith.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't really know hardly anybody at the company, but I know him and Beverly, his assistant. I've known him for a long time. And PRSs are always in my hands, And I'm also friends with the guys at Fender, and they just built me an amazing bespoke guitar. I did a video about it. It's up over 200,000 views. Put it out 3 weeks ago. And it was just an amazing thing they built for me, this completely custom. It's almost like a concept car. Great. I've been working with Heritage for the last couple of years because they make a Les Paul that's very affordable. And essentially it's the same. Some people don't like the headstock. I don't mind the headstock, but it's essentially a great Les Paul. And I had them do a custom design for me with weight relief and a 60s slim taper neck. And I have several of those, and those are great. So we have Heritage, we have Fender, we have PRS. And then there's a local company that I really champion called Shabat, Shabat, Avi Shabat. He makes incredible guitars. But in the past, I was a fan of Anderson. I'm looking around the room. I have Gretsch. I have Harmony. I have vintage Gibsons. I have some great vintage Gibsons. So those are at the forefront now, but I've played everything. As a session musician, you were required to bring every kind of guitar. Do you have an old Tele? Yes. Do you have a Jaguar? Yes. Do you have something funky made in Japan? Yes. Do you have a Dobro? Yes. You had to say yes to every answer, so you ended up buying everything. And there's a bit of that, going on too. I have a lot of things that I needed for, just when a client asked, I would have to say yes.
It's similar to a lot of things in the entertainment industry. You always hear that old joke about actors, like, hey, can you ride a horse? Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know how to ride a horse.
Exactly.
Oh, I don't have any idea how to ride a horse. I better figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah.
I better run to the guitar store and get a Jaguar. I don't have one.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the same.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm kind of the type of, obviously I like to collect guitars and gear, and I'm kind of the type of person who, a lot of people I've seen, there was a guy online the other day, I can't remember what forum it was in, but he had a room full of Strats, classic style single coil Strats, all of them. And that's cool. Like, hey, if that, you know your thing, that's great. But I'm the type of guy I like to spread out. I'm like, okay, cool. I've got a Strat now. Okay. I don't have a Gretsch. I don't have a this or a that. I like a variety of different styles in the arsenal. And it sounds like you're a little more that way too.
Well, I had to be, and then now, just because I know so many people who make guitars, it's continuing, So yeah, I have a lot of guitars. I've lost count. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. So when you're doing session work these days, do you find that you're getting called more for like a certain genre, or is it all pretty wide ranging?
Well, I'm at that point where I only do the sessions I want to do. And frankly, because my web business is so good, it's so successful, that the session work is for the love of it at this point. So I only do the sessions that I really enjoy the music. So there are a few producers that I know when I show up, it's going to be great music, and they're going to let me be myself. So at this point, I gravitate towards those employers, those clients who just want me for me. Okay.
Yeah.
And that is the opposite of what I offered people, for the last 4 decades. So that has been a change.
Yeah.
I will, the people that hire me now let me be myself. Now we do every style. I'll be playing like Nile Rodgers, and then I'll be playing like, somebody, Jimmy Page, and then I'll be playing like, John Mayer. I will offer every style, but it's still kind of my version of it. And, the people I work with let me do, if they ask me, can you do a Nile Rodgers part or a John Mayer part? I come up with the first thing I can think of, and it's done. So that's, it's my version of whatever is modern or current or they're asking for at this particular moment. And I don't do every session anymore. I only do the ones that are going to be pleasurable and fun. And that generally it has to do with some relationships that are just so long-standing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you tend to go to the studio to do them, or do you record them in your own setup?
Either way, I prefer for people to come over because it saves me time, and I can give them more if they come over. We're working within, it's like turning on a Ferrari. We're working within 5 minutes of them coming to the front door if we don't tell jokes. If we get a cup of coffee, we're working within 15 minutes. So it's much better if they're willing to come over. I tend to shy away from delivering stuff over the internet without people in the room. That's for other musicians. I used to do that. I've done plenty of it, but I prefer, to be in the room with the people or have them come here. So either way is fine. I'm going to go down to East West and do a session next week for some friends. I have other friends who have their own studios that I go to. It's very relaxed, very easy.
Love it. That's awesome. So this just ticked something in my brain. So obviously you were there from the transition from tape to digital, and obviously you've embraced a lot of digital things. What was it like for you in particular at that time? Were you all in like, oh, this computer stuff's going to be great? Or were you like, no, we got to go old school? How did you feel about it when the transition was happening?
I never shied away from anything that was required to keep making a living. I didn't even think about it, basically. If I had to do something to be part of the new world, it just, I just did it. But that being said, when the digital revolution started, most of the people I was working with, they were the ones who took that on. And I would just show up at the studio, and all of a sudden we were working in front of a computer rather than on a analog machine. Now, what did change is, at a certain point, I forget which year it was, I got my own digital studio, and that was ADATs at first. So I did a solo record on ADATs. So I bought my own studio, just like, and that was new at that point. And then when Pro Tools came along, I set up a Pro Tools thing and started doing sessions at home on Pro Tools. And the learning curve was somewhat steep at first on Pro Tools. But once you learn software, it becomes second nature. And I became incredibly fast at the 12 things that I need to do, or 20 things I need to do in Pro Tools to get my job done. There are 1,000 things you can learn, but when you're actually doing a job, you become lightning fast at the things you need to do that job. It was an easy transition for me. I actually preferred it because it's more non-destruct audio for a guitar player is wonderful because you can play freely, and you can just give a lot more. It was harder on analog because there were certain engineers who were absolutely famous who were not great at punching in and out.
Yep.
And that was always a bit of an awkward thing when somebody, one of the most famous engineers in the world for getting great sounds, would miss a punch, because it was a different skill. So that went away when digital recording came. That was a wonderful thing. I prefer digital recording. And, the only problem with digital is that the end user MP3 has never been as good as it should be, but that's changing now too. The quality of the end user product is getting better. So that means, what we hear in our rooms is amazing. And what the audience that gets delivered the end product hears is getting more amazing. But that's been really the only drawback is what happens to this great sound that we make digitally when it gets, squished down to an MP3, but that's getting better. So it was not a hard transition. It happened naturally. The people I was working with did it for me. They were the ones who were recording me. I came up later, at a certain point when I had my home studio, I'd been doing it so long that it was just easy to drop in.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Yeah. And I kind of grew up, I came in at the tail end where there was hardly anything going to tape, and I tried the ADATs and all that stuff too. And, but my first real experience recording was in Cubase. So I was that was all new to me. I just this is how you do it, I guess. I don't know any other way to do it. I see these tape machines. I don't know how they work. I'll never be able to afford one. I never really got to experience that side of it outside of, we would bounce everything down and run it through a tape machine and then back into the computer just to kind of get some semblance of that vibe. But we never recorded direct to tape. So it's always been a fascinating thing to me just because as many things I've got to experience, that's not one of them. But that is the way everything that was done back then. So, yeah.
Well, you will hear complaints from, veterans in music. And those complaints are usually based on one thing. In that particular era before digital, everything happened at once. So you had, if you were in the room when Frank Sinatra was singing with an orchestra, it all happened at once. If you were in the room when, some of these crazy famous bands were making their records, it all happened together at once. And the people that were there in those rooms making those records got to see those amazing records gel and happen in one moment with everybody in the room. So you'll hear complaints about that. But when I started, there was plenty of that, but there was also plenty of overdubbing. And frankly, as a guitar player, I could actually give people more as far as guitar orchestration after the track was done. So I'd never had that complaint, but really the only time you hear people pining for that era, and rightfully so. I mean, if you're in the room and the Beatles are throwing down their amazing song all at once right in front of you, how could you, what's better than that?
Yeah, that's true. No, it is. But the thing is, if people really are insistent on having that experience, you could still do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've done it before, and it's amazing. Did we overdub a lot of stuff afterwards? You betcha. But we did get to have that experience of most of it coming organically.
Yeah, and Nashville records are still made that way. They get most of it right there in the first or second take, and then they just shape it appropriately afterwards. So, yeah.
Well, and that's one thing I love to repeat over and over again is when you're recording, whether you're overdubbing or whatever you're doing, some people are like, well, how did you get it to sound that good? What compressor did you use in post and all that stuff? It's man, if it sounds good going in, your work is a lot easier in post. So just get it sounding as good as you can before it hits the tape or the computer, and your life's going to be dramatically easier in post.
Good advice.
Yes. That's one thing I cannot stress enough. It'll be plus it's more fun to dial it in with pedals and amps and stuff than it is sliding EQs around in the computer. So yeah, That's my recommendation.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Good Hertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're going to like what you find.
Hi, I'm Tyler, founder of Cozy Earth. When you're thinking about the perfect gift, what better way to show your loved ones that you care than by giving them something that helps them feel better, sleep better, and add superior luxury to their everyday life? If you sleep in our sheets for 100 nights and don't absolutely love your experience, we'll refund your money. No questions asked. This year, give the gift of Cozy Earth. Once they try it, they'll never go back.
Use code SPOTIFY at CozyEarth.com and save up to 40%. That's CozyEarth.com/Spotify.
This is the sound of your ride home with Dad after he caught you vaping. Awkward, isn't it? Most vapes contain seriously addictive levels of nicotine and disappointment. Know the real cost of vapes. Brought to you by the FDA.
So when you obviously have people coming to you for so many different things. Do you have people asking you about YouTube specifically now? Like, how do I get started on YouTube? What did you do, Tim? Is that something, or is it still more the lessons, the session work that people want to talk to you about? What questions do you get mostly?
Well, I get a lot of questions about gear and sounds, and I try and answer them as best I can. Some people will say, well, yeah, how do you feel about the Boss Katana amplifier? Well, if I owned one, I could tell you, but I don't own one, so I don't know. But that happens a lot. And then a lot of people ask about careers in music, and I say do everything. Multiple income streams, learn to sing, play, write, teach, perform, record, do everything you possibly can, and also be willing to have a straight job at the same time if necessary. Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that. Do whatever you can to pay the bills and play music at the same time. And then I do get questions about YouTube, and I'm an evangelist for the business I have, which is educational, digital learning products. And I hate to use the word product, but that's really what it is. These videos are a way for people to, open up and have you become a friend with the people you're teaching. And I believe that, musicians, I will sit on the phone frequently for an hour with another musician, sometimes a famous musician, and tell them that they need to make a 2-hour tutorial, upload it to Teachable, and have a link where people can click on it and make that income stream. So I'm an evangelist for teaching on the web. Yeah, that is my biggest role, and I've coached some really famous names. I coach new people. I'm willing to get on the phone and talk endlessly about the virtues of having this link that gives you mailbox money, basically.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's I'm good friends with Brian Wampler, and he's always been on that train.
Great.
Forever. He was one of the first people ever to publish on the internet. Now, there was people before him, but he was a very early one to publish a book on how to modify guitar pedals. And there for a while, that thing was going for stupid money on the secondary market. It was like some people were buying that book for like $600. And he's like, no, don't buy it. There's stuff in there I didn't know that is wrong. like, but he's been doing that same thing forever, and now he's doing a lot of courses. He has courses on setting up your pedal board and courses like stuff that I think sometimes take for granted. And he's trying to get me to do some of this stuff, and I'm like, I don't know what I would teach people. What would I teach people?
Well,
I'm not a good enough guitarist, but
put me on your list, and I'll figure it out for you. Just dedicate 40 minutes when you're driving somewhere. Give me a call, and I will give you a pep talk about what you can do to go out there and make your course, your educational gift for people.
There's no way I'm going to turn that down. I will definitely take you up on that. We'll talk after the show.
Excellent.
I appreciate that very much. So let's see here. How much time do we got? Okay, yeah, we got a little bit more time. So one thing that I think people would think is fun, because you've had so much exposure to so much gear over the years, and we've talked about the guitars, and we know kind of what your taste in amps is. To I think most people can tell, but when it comes to pedals, like, do you use a lot of pedals? Do you like a big pedal board, or do you like to keep things more condensed? Like, what's your approach to effects?
Okay, my pedal boards were always way too big. I would have every pedal, it was part of the competition of being a session player. You have all the ambient pedals, then you have all the overdrives, you have all the compressors, you have all the delays, you have all the wacky pedals. So I would bring in way too many pedals, and even producers would sometimes get annoyed by how big my pedal boards were. And there were multiple ones. I had racks full of pedal boards. I had 3 pedal boards on the floor for a while. It was always changing. Now, like I said, because I do the session work I want to do, and I'm a little more of a purist, now I kind of gravitate towards natural sounding overdrive or boost pedals, and then reverb and delay, and a little bit of modulation at times. But I don't really pursue all of the wacky pedals anymore because I don't have to. I don't really chase fuzz that much, although I'm a real fan of using a great fuzz and turning down the strat to where you get that clean tone.
Oh, yeah.
So to be specific, Tom Bukovac gave John Shanks a Nobles ODR1 a long time ago, and he gave him another one, and then John gave me one of those. So that really hooked me on the ODR one, the vintage one. So I've been using those for a long time. They're very hard to get, and they're very overpriced. There are clones made now. Keeley makes a clone. That's great. And then my friend at Karma Pedals makes a clone. And this, I'll go ahead and unplug it so you can see it.
Sweet.
This is his new one. It's the Mostortion and the ODR1 clone together that can be done in series or parallel, and it's a good pedal too. So there are clones of the Nobles ODR1, and that really has been one of my favorites. I really like the Andy Timmons delay. I'm a fan of all kinds of delay pedals, but to simplify, either a very, very natural sounding overdrive or boost, and then a very natural sounding reverb, and then a very darkened modulated delay. This is very specific. And this is what Andy Timmons does naturally on his Halo pedal. It's a darkened modulated delay. And the reason that works so well is your original signal has all its brightness and fidelity, and then this stereo delay is on either side, doesn't get in the way, and it's darkened so you don't hear it as well, and it's modulated so it creates a little bit of chorusing and space. And what it does is it just makes your guitar dimensional, and it makes it float. You're not necessarily hearing the delays, but they're adding dimension to the guitar. And I'm hooked on that, and I use it all the time. And there are other things. I like the Boss VB2 vibrato. I use tremolo for really slow tremolo. And, I'm looking next to me. I have a crazy amount of pedals sitting here, but I use them sparingly. So, yeah.
Yeah. Man, slow tremolo is, I think, underrated. A good slow trem, and you're just kind of vibing. Yeah. Oh, man.
That's my thing. Yeah, that's what I do. Yeah.
Love it. I love it in stereo. I've got a Mr. Black Panatrem that kind of does this panning tremolo. And so when I set 2 amps on opposite sides of the room and stand in the middle of that thing, It feels so good.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah. Love that kind of stuff.
That's
Absolutely.
fantastic.
I'm a big pedal nerd. I think that's like what really, once I found that like the tube amp sounds that I liked, and then I went into the pedal world, I just became obsessed. I have way too many, way too many. But I don't think I'll ever stop. I just love it so much. It's so much fun.
No, why stop? I mean, you can sell the ones that end up in the graveyard. I have a graveyard of pedals that I'm looking at right now that has 100 pedals in it, and I won't sell the ones that were given to me, but you can recycle them, and they go to find a fine home, and then you do the new ones. So yeah, it's never ending.
Yep. I mean, yeah, it's gotten to the point where like half the time I'm playing the pedals as much as I'm playing the guitar.
They do. So. They dictate the kind of sound the part you go for. It's really true. The guitar sound you're using, whether it be distorted or clean from the amp or altered from whatever pedal you're using, it creates the direction you take as a musician and the part and sound that you end up making. And you literally become a different guitar player when you're using a different piece of gear or a specialized pedal or something. So yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah. So we are getting close-ish to the end of the episode, and I have some classic questions I like to wrap this up on before we slide over to Patreon. But before I do that, I like to give you the chance to take the stage. You got the ears of a few thousand people right now. You can plug anything you want to plug, shout out your cousin, say anything you want to say. Like the floor is yours right now, Tim.
Well, thank you. I kind of slipped it in already, but if you want guitar lessons, go to my YouTube channel. Click on any link below any video. Take the 30 free. We offer 30 free lessons, hours of lessons. Click that link and check out those free lessons. And then those will lead you to the online masterclass if you're interested. And like I said, it's almost 2,000 videos, almost 200 hours. I've started to add other guitar players to it also. So you literally can't find where it ends if you join the masterclass. We're just going to keep growing it, and I'm really proud of it. And that's if you want guitar lessons. We even have a beginner's course that has over 100 videos. It's very comprehensive. If you're an absolute beginner, and I mean absolute, never picked up a guitar before, we have a beginner's course that I'm very proud of. So that's it. It's the masterclass. You can Google it. You can go to my YouTube videos. There are links underneath those. We'd love to have you.
And guess what, folks? Wherever you're listening or watching to this, the links will be where the words are. This goes out into so many different places. I can't keep track of what they're calling it, whether it's the description or the show notes or what they're saying. Whatever you're listening to this on, wherever the words are, the links to that will be there. So go there. It'll be really easy for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right. Classic questions. Here we go. First one, and you may have answered this already. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
The VB2, the vibrato.
There you go. I thought that you might say that. You brought it up specifically.
Dream pitch modulation. I love it. I will always love it. And the Wazacraft reissue, I think, is even better because it's quieter. So more hi-fi.
Oh.
So yeah.
Nice. How long have you been playing with the VB2?
Early 90s. I have two original ones and love them, but they are noisy. And right now I'm using the Wazacraft, the new one.
There you go. Okay, outside of using the Wazacraft one, you have any tips or tricks for reducing the noise, or you just got to live with it?
I use a volume pedal 100% of the time, and so I am killing noise from any gain pedals in front of the amp. It's like I'm driving a car, and you don't know I'm doing it, but whenever I'm not playing, I pull back on the volume pedal, and it silences everything. So that's my biggest tip.
There you go. That's a hot tip for anything. There you go. Perfect. All right. Final question. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
Oh, I would say there's a place that we love called Pitfire Pizza here in LA. And it's not expensive, but it's as good as the gourmet pizza you would get at Mozzo or one of the really gourmet places.
Oh.
And for me, there's this thing called a sausage party, which has every, you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's great. And not only is it great, but it has honey on it too. So you have the pepperoni, you have the sausage, you have the red sauce, you have the cheese, but you also have honey. And then this amazing crust. Come on, man.
I love that. Yeah, I discovered the hot honey thing in New York probably, I don't know, it's probably longer ago than I thought, maybe like 8 years ago or so, at a place called Roberta's, and I was skeptical. I was like, what? I don't know about that. That doesn't sound... And I took one bite, was like, oh no, yeah, this is it. So...
I'm with you. Yeah.
I love the hot honey on pizza. And what would you describe this crust as? Is it like a more of a thin crust type of thing, or
It's somewhere in the middle, but it is thin. You know, I would say it's thin. It's gourmet. I mean, they're giving you the gourmet crust that you get at the super high end places.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so the actual bed of the pizza is thin, but the crust is a big puff that's almost charred around it. So it's not the thick. It's not the thick crust, and and that ring is in some places hollow. So you crunch it, and it's there's air in the middle. So, it's fantastic.
That sounds phenomenal. I'm gonna have to check that out next time I'm down there. That sounds
you have to. Yeah,
right up my alley. Perfect. Well, Tim, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate the time. We'll slide over to Patreon and see what kind of nonsense we can get into over there.
All right.
Cool.
Thanks.
Yep. All right, everybody. For Tim, this is Blake. And as always, folks, good luck and good tones. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. That was one of my favorite conversations I've had in a very long time. What an absolute treat. I really, truly enjoyed it. And I hope you did as well. And if you did, well, you know where to go. Go over to Patreon, where you can get even more with me and Tim, chewing the fat, talking about stuff. It was really, really a great conversation over there as well. And I appreciate you for getting to this point in this podcast, because there's a lot you could be doing with your time, and I appreciate that you chose to spend it with me. I honestly mean that from the bottom of my heart, because I wouldn't get to do this without people like you. Thank you so much, folks. I'll be talking to you on the internet very, very soon. And oh yeah, this is just a quick little plug at the end. If you liked this and you want to watch Tim and I do it, it will be up on YouTube, where you can watch our beautiful faces have this conversation. So go over there and please go ahead and subscribe and all that good YouTube-y stuff. If you wouldn't mind, I'm doing it. I'm actually putting out content on YouTube now, putting out the video versions of these podcasts on a consistent basis. So hope you enjoy those. Please head over to the Tone Mob YouTube channel. And let's get out of here. Bye-bye. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
What's up, everybody? I am Finn McKenty, host of the Punk Rock NBA podcast, part of the Sound Talent Media podcast network. My podcast is all about doing what you love for a living, and every week I sit down and talk to people who have done exactly that. For example, musicians like Tommy from Between the Buried and Me, Matt from Periphery, Lil Lotus and Shinigami, among many others, photographers, artists, designers, YouTubers like Glenn Fricker and Sarah Dici, and I unpack exactly how they got to where they are today with the goal of helping you do the same. So if that sounds cool, you can listen and subscribe at soundtalentmedia.com, and I'll see you there.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we both celebrate and have a good laugh about bands and artists that had just one hit that we all know. Each week, we're joined by a guest from the world of music or comedy to learn more than you ever thought you would about some songs that you can't forget. And we decide if they brought the One Hit Thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. Look, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to laugh, and I guarantee you're going to crush next time the bar has music trivia. Tag Team, Jane Child, Meredith Brooks, Looking Glass, Sean Mullins, Eiffel 65, EMF, Crash Test Dummies, Crazy Town, Chumbawamba. We have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog and a new episode each week, so pass the Dutchie, make sure you're connected, and subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods.